Welcome to today's episode of True Life Story. Stay tuned. Please do well to like, subscribe, share, and please drop a comment. Love you.
In a very popular city in a country in Africa, a lady sacrificed her entire life by eating worms just to get her boyfriend wealthy. It was a ritual she wasn't aware of. Once upon a time, there was a young woman named Clara who lived in a quiet village with her boyfriend David. They loved each other deeply, but David, who was a dedicated church boy, was always troubled by their poverty. He dreamed of living in wealth and luxury, but no matter how hard he worked, the dream seemed too far away. One evening, after thinking about his life, he made a decision to leave and go to a place where he could get solution to his problems. David left without informing his girlfriend nor his family members. Everyone became worried and thought that David had been kidnapped or killed. After a very long time, David suddenly returned, pleading and begging that his parents and his girlfriend accept him back. After a lot of plea, they eventually accepted David back. His girlfriend was really happy to see that David has become very wealthy and well-to-do. She loved him more and more because now he can provide all they needed to live a happy life. Meanwhile, she never asked the source of his wealth or how he was able to do it. A year passed, and David said to Clara, "Let's visit my spiritual father." Clara was excited, thinking it would be an introduction to their marriage. Unknown to her, when they arrived at the location, the spiritual father asked that they bath at the riverside with a soap made with the womb of a 2-month pregnant woman, which they did. After the bath, Clara was asked to wait in the car, which she did, but then she suddenly heard a little bit of their conversation, which includes that Clara would have to eat worms in order to increase David's wealth, which David agreed to. When David got back into the car, Clara confronted him, asking him why he would agree to her eating worms, and David said she would only eat worms for a limited period and stop, and this will help to increase their wealth. Clara wasn't comfortable with this new development. Clara would cry all night. She would not eat. She was so sad, but she had no choice because she loved David so much and wanted to keep him all to herself. At first, it wasn't so bad. The worms were small, and Clara could barely taste them when she swallowed. Each day she consumed more and more, and as promised, David began to find success. His business flourished, money poured in, and their lives transformed. They bought a grand house, fine clothes, and enjoyed luxurious feasts. Everything seemed perfect, except for Clara. The more worms she ate, the more her body began to change. She grew heavier and heavier, her once slender frame swelling with unnatural weight. Her skin took on a strange pallor, and no matter how much perfume she used, an awful stench clung to her. She began to feel sick, not just physically but emotionally, as the worms filled her body and twisted her insides. Clara would not go to the toilet for a week, and then David took her back to his spiritual father, who would bring the poo out of her and then put it in a jar for some days, and when this poo turns into worms, she will be forced to eat it again, and that was how the cycle continued. David would leave Clara at home and go after multiple girls, clubbing, partying, and sleeping around with different ladies, spending money lavishly without even thinking of Clara's well-being. Clara been so fat, whenever people sees her they would say she's enjoying her boyfriend's money, unknown to them that it is the worm she's eating that is making her grow fat. Meanwhile, David had been warned by his spiritual father never to give Clara anything out of the money he makes. Clara confronted David again and asked him why he's doing all of this to her, and he said it was for her own good, and that he was only using those girls for rituals, and in a short period it would all be over. David, now wealthy and surrounded by new friends, started to drift away from Clara. He could barely stand to be near her because of the smell. He stopped caring for her, and soon he wasn't even coming home. Lonely and ashamed, Clara continued to eat the worms, hoping that if she stopped, all of their riches would vanish, and David would be angry with her. But the more she ate, the more her condition worsened. She could hardly walk now, her body bloated and grotesque, her skin turning gray and flaky. The smell had become unbearable to others. People crossed the street when she walked by. Her love had consumed her. One day, Clara went to see the spiritual father. "Why are you doing this to me?" Clara wept. "I did what you asked, and look at me. I'm a monster." The old man cackled. "The price of greed and misplaced love, my dear, is always high. You sacrificed yourself for a man who no longer cares for you. This was never about him. It was about you and the choice you made. Now you're stuck with it." Desperate, Clara begged the old man to undo the curse. But the man vanished, leaving only a faint echo of laughter in the wind. From that day on, Clara lived alone in her grand empty house. David never returned. He had grown tired of her and moved on to a new life. The fortune remained, but Clara's body continued to deteriorate. She was trapped in her own misery, a tragic symbol of the price one pays for sacrificing too much in the name of love. And so, in the end, Clara learned a bitter truth. Wealth gained through unnatural means brought only sorrow, and a love that demanded such sacrifice was never true to begin with.